Well, let me call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum, and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I've been on this committee, I don't know,
Microphones.
yeah, put the microphones on, please, thank you. I'm usually the one who forgets to put it on. I was thinking of this today as I went through my notes. I think I've been on the committee for 70 years or something. Even before I was selectman, I think I was the CIP representative from the Finance Committee. I think. Is my memory correct? Recall? Sounds right. So I can't remember who else would have been. And every year, it's a tough job because we've got capital needs of literally millions, close to it. We don't have millions. So it's like a triage process. There was a reason why I didn't get into medicine, other than I wouldn't have passed the test, but I didn't want to do triage, is what I'm trying to say to you. But anyway, it's like that. It's a triage process, and it's tough. Now, what we were thinking about, we don't know what the exact free cash number will be, but we've been thinking and hoping it's around 2 million. Let's use that as a planning marker, but if it doesn't turn out that way, then we'll adjust. But that's what we're hoping for, and we were talking about this the other day, Jim and I, and we have a couple of needs, and Jim can chime in. Certainly there are warrant articles that require funding, and they're often from free cash, and that would account for some. I know the schools are looking for money. They had a budget problem last year, and we had to use $300,000 of cash, free cash, to supplement their budget. We didn't really want to do that. It was supposed to be a one-time event, but they do have some serious needs, and they're looking for some free cash. I can tell you that. We've been talking about that. And there's $1 million gap between their budget and Jim's budget, basically, the town budget, as it exists at the moment. The Finance Committee, of course, has to weigh in and are the ultimate deciders of what goes to town meeting in the form of a budget. And our numbers are due next week. But anyway, so I don't know, I just said to myself, maybe we have $1 million for capital here. That's half of what we think might be the free cash. I don't think we can use any more than that. It might be argued we shouldn't use that much. But I figured just for planning, because this isn't really a planning exercise, and these things will change. This has to go the Finance Committee review. It's got to go, ends up at town meeting and warrant articles and so on and so forth. But that's what I was kind of thinking. Now, Jim has, but don't count on that. That's just me saying that. The amount of free cash, by the way, that would be an unusually high number, right?
Yes.
And it probably won't be repeated, right, Nicole? I mean, that's something, you can't count on that every year.
No, definitely not.
So anyway, it'd be nice if we could use some of that for your idea there. It's going to be hard, but anyway. So we did rank these, and Jim has done a nice job of putting the ones first, and then you got the twos and the threes. You can see it on one page. That's great. And with funding sources, the agenda item today is to go first. The first item, I don't know if there are any, is presentation of any new submittals. Are there any, Jim?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I just jumped into really the next item without following my own rules here. I do that a lot. But anyway, so we're on review and ranking of requests. Well, we did that last time, but you always want to take a second look and see how it looks on paper like this. And then, but I added in a consideration of funding sources. So now we got to start talking about money. The time has come, and what do we want to do? So maybe I'll let Jim take over the meeting and talk about the ones that are possibly funded, as you can see from the notes here. if they are funded, then maybe we can get those done, and why not? Because I don't think we could use some of those funds for something else, but you can give us the ramifications of each, and so on and so forth. So what, you want to start and lead us to the
Sure. So
In discussion?
Under the funding secured, we have two projects, $950,000 for the town hall HVAC and some minor exterior repairs. That's actually been approved through, well, it's going to be recommended through CPC funds for about $250,000. And the remainder is coming from a grant that we received from the state and energy incentives from the utility company. So that one is pretty much, for the most part, been funded. Cemetery bathroom was previously approved to use as cemetery funds, and that's currently being worked on. So those two, I don't believe we have to include in our upcoming projects to be funded through the free cash.
May I ask a question on this?
Sure.
Even though it's funded, do we put that on the town warrant with a source
No.
of fund? No? Okay. So it's just a different item. Okay.
Yep.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I just thought we had to do that at one time. Okay, so those two are spoken for, so to speak.
Yep.
And is that on the HVAC? I mean, is this a solid yay, or is it one that we're, maybe we'll get it, or maybe won't, or?
No, we got the grant. Grant's been
Okay.
awarded to us. Design's already been started, so that's moving forward. The CPC still needs to be approved at town meeting, but we can still go forward with the majority of the repairs without the CPC money if we had to.
Okay. Well, where would we get that money if CBC didn't come forward? The grant?
We would have to get it somewhere else, free cash or through
Oh.
capital improvements.
Well,
Right
that's,
now, they're recommending approval on it,
yeah. CPC.
CPC, yes.
Yeah. And when would they have that finalized at their meeting? I don't know when they meet.
So they've already, it's on the town meeting warrant.
Oh, okay.
Their recommendation, yeah.
All right, well, we would hope that would pass at town meeting. Those things generally do. That's not, the past is never an indication of the future, but it's never completely an indication of the future, but usually we do. Well, that's good, because that's a big item. $950,000, that's big. All right, so those, good, are spoken for. Continue.
So then we're on the ones that are under review. The big one there is the $1 million for the heating system for the Westport Elementary School. You know, we're currently, they've applied for a Green Communities grant for that one. And it may not be Green Communities, a federal program, I think, too, that offers for larger programs, but they have applied for that. That is not Green Communities, actually, it's a federal program. You know, in general, it's an awful big project to be funded through the free cash capital improvements anyway.
Yeah.
You know, that's almost one that you would want to approve with a debt exclusion if we had to go that way. But hopefully we get the grant for that one. The other ones that there might be some possible other funding sources, we're looking at the ARPA funding, and that would include some of the internet and computer type requests. So they have the internet DMARC relocation, that's where they're going to move the server or the equipment from a private office now to the fire station on Briggs Road, was $32,000. They needed public safety radio hardware of $250,000. Battery backups $25,000, and then the school department was looking for $125,000 for school two-way radios for all their facilities. What I'd like to do, or what I would suggest, is that we propose to submit those to ARPA, to the Bristol County ARPA as one application. They do allow ARPA funding for broadband and computer type use. With that, I think we can justify the majority, if not all of it, through that program if the ARPA group and the Board of Selectmen want to go that way.
Well, tell me, if they get approved, that's great, but if they don't, then do we have a problem with timing here, and when is,
So,
what do we do next, is I guess what I'm saying. And when do we do next? When do we do whatever we're going to do next?
it takes about a month to get the approval through the ARPA.
Mhm.
So we would have to submit it as soon as possible if we wanted to put it back into this program.
Yeah, would it, But what are the deadlines, in this program meeting, our recommendation to town meeting?
So we have to finalize the town meeting warrant by the first, so it's only beginning of March, I believe.
Hmm.
Looking at Nicole here,
Like March 2nd, I think it is.
Not much time here.
in February.
Well,
The warrant is finalized 2 weeks before, right? We have to post it, so we can do some minor changes, but if it's gonna go to FinCom and everything else, it's gonna take.
The selectmen have to submit it to FinCom the beginning of March. But then the warrant has to go out for publication 2 weeks prior to town meeting, which is April 20-something or other. So, I mean, you can make minor changes, but FinCom likes to squawk about changing things midstream, so. But usually between the time the selectmen give it to FinCom and then FinCom finalizes, town council looks at it, bond council looks at it, so there's always minor language changes. You know, Steve Forrest puts his seal of approval on all the motions and things like that, so there's always little tweaks here and there. So if we had to add something, sure it would be an issue.
well, does that suggest then we need to treat these as though they wouldn't be approved and get them on the list somewhere? And then if they are approved, then just cross it off. Because we've got to, they don't get funded by ARPA, these are number one priorities, we'd want to get them probably included.
Well, that's something we could look at. Should we rank the number ones?
Hmm. Well, yeah, I think we should, but we have ones and then we have ones. We have the ones with money, like the heating system, and then we have ones that don't. So, I mean, you kind of like...
Yeah, the heating system, the million, I personally wouldn't recommend funding out of this program. We're going for a grant now, and
Yeah.
if we don't get it, you know, to put $1 million into one project, we'd get nothing else done.
No, I agree on that, with that, but I'm really talking
The
about
remainder.
the ARPA's.
And the bottom one, the cemetery one, I think is pretty straightforward. That can come out of the cemetery funds. And that's just a vote of the selectmen.
Yeah, and I think it'll pass. All right, so we're only talking, my problem that we're talking about is only related to the demarc thing and the radio there, and battery backups, playground annex, and two-way radios in the cemetery, and anything else down here. Possible CPC grant for, well, that's an item number 2.
Yeah, that one's out. I would recommend that. That's being recommended for CPC funding.
Yeah,
The annex playground,
Yeah,
is that on their list for this year?
it is. They're also looking at a possible grant, and it's looking somewhat promising as well, so.
so it looks like, quick math here tells me that the ones that are not funded, they don't total $1 million. I think they total
761,
70, yeah, is that all right?
and then the possible ARPA ones, if they don't get funded, is another 432, so we're looking at 1.193.
Yeah, so we could agree on the ones that are unfunded, which ones we want to make sure we get on the list. That's probably all of these, unless people have second thoughts. And second thoughts are okay at this CIPC, you know, things change. And then if we think we have some extra money, we could look at the 2s. But maybe we should then, let's be optimistic and assume the ones that Jim has marked here as possible sources of funds will prevail. So I think this is a good time to look at the remaining ones and say, just one last time, are we going for those, and they're going to be on the list. And the first one, of course, is the master clock. Any further comments on that? Any second thoughts? Any brainstorms, new ideas?
Are we looking to rank the ones, or are we just gonna?
We should rank them. And I know the Finance Committee likes that. And also, if you rank them and they don't all make it for some reason, next year you look at the ones, we should look at the ones, as we have done, the ones that didn't get it last year, that we wanted to get it through, and then some of those things you gotta move on in the subsequent years. So it has forward prospects, forward-looking prospects. So I would suggest we do that. Now, do you have like a sub-ranking, 1.1 or something? Or what do you want to,
ABC?
ABC? I mean,
So all the, like the 1As.
so the ones we're talking about, just for clarity, are the ones that are, for the moment, ones that are not, they don't have any source of funds next to them. There's one, that's the 700,000 you mentioned. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 7, there's 8 of them, I guess.
Yeah, there's 8.
8. All right, so, well, since there's only 8, what's number 1 on the hit parade?
Springbrook
The software.
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 Not to toot our own horn, but yeah, I mean, that.
Yeah,
I agree.
IT is going to,
So that's a 1A1, that's a
Yeah.
1 without an
1A, yep.
A, 1A, okay, so we're gonna do 1A.
Okay, and any debate on that, Jim?
I'm
Muriel?
good with that.
All agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about this software for a long time. We can't get around this. You can only postpone it for so long. All right, so I have no issue with that. 121,000 cloud software is number 1. Do I have a candidate for number 2?
Parking lot for the town hall. I vote on parking lot for the town hall.
So that was just patching,
I don't
It's
care,
just-
it still needs to be done, something needs to be done out there.
20,000.
Yeah, I couldn't come out of my car one day, I parked my car over there, and it rained so much, I had to go in by my passenger's door because of big puddle, because of the nice even ground. So,
That's not fun.
no, so I
No.
have to go into the passenger's door so I can get into my car because all the rain.
Yeah, well, I've experienced that too. Well, fortunately, it's not a ton of money.
No,
No, it's cheap.
So it's hard to argue against that, so
Is that a
well,
1P?
1B or something. I'm just putting 1, 2, and 3, just for my own purposes. Don't be concerned about that. Jim is the final record keeper here, I would hope. All right, so what would be the third one of these 8 that,
I'm going to say heating at station number 2.
yeah.
yeah, that sounded like it had a lot of safety implications, you know. I can't believe it, you know, you can get somebody who knows how to work with metal and put a plate on there, I think, but they said they can't do that. I don't know. But I can't argue because it is dangerous. It's 30,000. It's something I think we have money in free cash for that. So is that the consensus? That's the third, C, or what, 3, or what?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the view on the number 4 here, the 1D, 1D?
No, my priority is, but I don't know if that's,
What's your priority?
we need a pickup truck.
I was going to
I
say,
mean,
that
that's
was
where my
my,
thought
that's
was
where I was
going.
going. Yes,
Pickup truck.
just because we can't keep
Yeah.
using the electric car.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I use it on Mondays and Tuesday mornings because of Bobby's schedule. So I have to schedule all my appointments.
If you need a different, yeah, we can.
It's okay, I take my car on any
Okay.
other day, but that's the
Yeah,
plan. You work with me so I can use the car.
Well, we've had the pickup truck on our list for a long time, so I agree. All right, so we got the first 4, we only got 4 left. What's next?
Paging, the clock.
I was going to say the west parking lot, or they would,
That's the one, that was their priority.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that,
And they dropped that down to 300,000.
Yeah,
right,
so is that
that's
E.
E.
E or number 5, whatever? And then is the clock after that?
I'd probably go the police cruiser, but
Police cruiser?
I would do the clock or the excavator.
Well, the police are getting 2 cruisers with ARPA money, right? Or did get 2 cruisers, or getting,
they did.
I guess, yeah, so. So what's the thought here? What's the best one for the next in line?
I would go with highway,
Highway?
yeah.
And that's the mini excavator? that what you're talking about, 235?
And then,
I think they made a good case for that, if I recall. So is that going to be number 6 or whatever, F?
Yep,
The clock.
the clock and then the cruiser.
I'd go cruiser clock, but that's just.
Cruiser clock cruiser?
Yeah, but if we had to drop the cruiser off, he can always get the most likely he'll have the money in his budget to get the cruiser. It's historically, I can't even think of the word, but historically, he has been able to get a cruiser from his budget at the end of the year. Like transferring the money.
Well, whatever, we would hope that these 8 will
Right.
pass muster anyway.
Right, but if for some reason we'd have to drop from the bottom up, then
Yeah.
I think the cruiser should be on the bottom. Just,
I don't have
I'll go majority rules.
no one is enough for cruiser.
yeah.
There shouldn't be much this year. We're counting on you, because we gotta pay retroactive for the raises, and
When?
we hope to have a decision by the end of the month, beginning of next month. I'd say middle of next month.
Yeah, but part of that's gonna have to come out of this. It's
Free
gonna be
cash.
a separate article for free cash, because not all of it can come out of his budget.
But that's why you may not be able to get the cruiser this year.
Well, why don't we go with the clock as the next one and then the cruiser after that? I mean, we're probably splitting hairs at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and the cruiser is number 8 or whatever is G or something, I don't know what it is. H. All right, so that's, that total, Nicole, you said is 700,000 and change? You have a
Then that would be 761.
761?
761 for those 8.
Okay,
So right now, I think it's 500 is pretty safe to say, and 768 may be possible, but depending on what we do, if we put any into stabilization fund,
yeah,
depending how much school free cash is needed.
right, yeah, so maybe we should draw the line that this is not, we're not looking to spend the rest of $1 million, is what you're saying. I just took that up for discussion. But I hadn't thought about the police. I mean, that's the one I should, since I was involved in that. And it would be any day now, and there's a piece of that, well, there's a couple of pieces of that.
That retro could be significant, and then we're gonna have to hit free cash.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
You know,
That's what happened a few years back, right? Yeah. Yeah, we had no choice.
yeah, we did 4 years at once, way back when.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah, we-
years are we looking at this time?
We're at 2? We're in the
Or
second year of the
second
3
year,
years.
so
Yeah,
a
it'd be
year and a
2.
half, almost
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, almost 2 years.
Yeah, we're getting ready to negotiate again before too long. Yeah. Well, we were hoping, the original date was Valentine's Day of all things. And then the arbitrator said they needed another month. I don't know why. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time. The issues are kind of narrowed down. But it's probably going to be significant, and it will be significant retro. So, yeah, I agree with that thought, and also the schools. And also, it would be good if we could put money into the stabilization part that's capital. If we could all agree on that, I hope that happens. That's a good practice.
So do you need a motion to rank them in that order?
Yeah, let's make a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion that we rank A to H as discussed.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. By the way, who's keeping minutes? Is it your turn or my turn, Mr. Hartnett? Well, unless we have a
I think we need a
volunteer.
new volunteer.
Well, yeah, I
Three
mean,
new
you
volunteers
don't want
sitting on
to
the other side
shortchange
of the
anybody.
table.
It's your chance.
Hey, I did minutes for what, 20 years?
20 years, you all minuted out? Well, I know everybody's
It
busy.
wasn't that long, but
Well,
I've kept notes so far.
I'll tell you what, you kept, why don't you and I work this out? And I'll do it. It's fairly cut and dried, I
I
think.
can start the formatting,
Yeah,
can review.
yeah, why don't we do that?
Jim, I have a quick question. So the sped vans, that's not the same as the 2 vans they just got from ARPA.
I think they
No,
wanted
they
two
were looking
more.
for two more.
And the ARPA vans, it's 180, not 190.
Is it 180?
Yeah, we got a check for 180 for the 2 vans.
When did the check,
It's 180.
when did it come in, you know?
When did we get that check for 180 from Bristol County? Last month? Sometime in January. Get the
Okay.
$180,000.
I just want to make sure I got it on my other spreadsheet.
Okay, a motion made and seconded. Further discussion on the motion. It was these items ranked accordingly at $761,000. Any further discussion? If none, I assume it's time to vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Well, the question now is, do we do anything further today? Further would be just discussing some of the other items and wondering if there's any money down the road, if we wanted at another meeting to say, well, we'll add $64,000 for the library HVAC, or is this, I mean, I don't think we'd have much room based on what we've discussed. And I wasn't fully contemplating the police thing, which I should have been the first one to contemplate that.
So should we do a recommendation to the ARPA group to consider those 4?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'd make that motion to recommend to the ARPA group that those 4 items, the DMARC, the public safety radio hardware, the battery backups, and the 2-way radios for the school be considered by the ARPA group.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? The only thing I would bring up is, but I already brought it up, what if it doesn't get through ARPA, then we'll just probably have to go back to the drawing board and see where they fit into the rankings. If there's any money to do that, and probably isn't, so. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, those 4 items, it's only $432,000. So
Yes.
It's not like it's another $1 million.
Right, that's the good news.
We might be able to squish them in somewhere.
Okay, well, that's, we've covered that base, and we'll keep that in mind. Okay, so any further discussion on the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? The motion, again, is unanimous. Well, so, Jim, is there any thought at all, and don't laugh at me for making the recommendation, should we look at the 2s and 3s, or just let them sit? I know the Finance Committee likes us to rank everyone that we contemplated, just for general knowledge. They can just stay like this. I think the 2s and the 3s, they're not going to happen. The 3s certainly aren't. And, I don't think we need to do anything with that. But what do you think? What does anybody think?
I agree with that.
Just leave them as is?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
We could list them and say, here's the other ones we contemplated that were of lesser.
I don't think it
Priority.
really matters at this point, because next year, when we're looking at them, the 2s, I think they may switch our recommendations from this year. Something may change on
Yeah.
those recommendations,
Right.
so I don't think it really matters.
Right. And the ones that matter are the ones we're going to fund. And we've made a motion and accepted that. All right, well, that's pretty much what we wanted to accomplish today, right? But I'll ask anybody, is there anything more on these items to discuss? I don't think there is, but...
I think I'm good.
I think I'm good.
Okay, then, let's call that item concluded. And I do want to talk about the need for another meeting. Now, with this vote, the CIPC is ready to recommend this to the Board of Selectmen, right?
Yes.
We would just do that and say, this is a vote, this is what we did, it's done, for the time being anyway. And is there any need to meet again? I mean, I always thought there might be more submissions, but there aren't. I mean, they're paying money for this anyway, but... So I would say we probably don't need to schedule another meeting unless... Is anybody here who's dying to have another meeting? I mean, thought I'd ask, knowing probably what the answer would be.
I do have another question on these things. We spent $761. We're not looking at putting anything into stabilization. I know I asked for a nice small figure of 500,000. Could we elect to put that 50,000 or something, anything into
To mark a
stabilization?
space. And
Just-
then
Yeah.
if you can put more, you can always put more.
Right.
That would, I would think, Jim, you can correct me here, that would be a different article. It wouldn't be in with these.
Correct.
Right.
It would stand on its own.
It's usually the last article of town meeting to put whatever's left in free cash into stabilization. Usually, Steve Forrest likes a number, so usually the FinCom comes up with a number. When they finalize their stuff and they say, okay, we had this much in free cash, here's the capital, here's all the rest of the warrant articles, this is what we think we have left, boom. So nobody can take it, it's already like spent,
Yeah.
so.
Well, then, would that article specify the capital amount? No, we just stabilization A and B? It's a-
There's, right,
We
I
could,
would want it
yes.
to specify capital stabilization, because right now we have, majority of our stabilization is in just regular stabilization. We do have a
Right.
part in capital.
5,000 in capital. something
Right,
like that.
and capital, I see, is where we're gonna need the funds. So I would rather that the article specify to capital stabilization, not general stabilization.
Well, we can write up the two articles from my suite into capital stabilization. I have two things to sweep. One is $9,175, and the other one is $93,000
Oh, okay,
something. We could sweep those into capital,
right.
and that would give us a nice boost into capital.
Is there some money in there already from
It's
the past?
45,000 in capital stabilization.
Yeah, okay.
So
I think we
if
discussed
Another
that, yeah.
100 in there.
And as we were discussing, 45,000 isn't gonna get us far on these capital needs.
No.
No, it's not.
So, as we go through the budget process, right, the school department is probably going to need a fairly substantial amount of free cash. How much that is, I don't think it's been determined yet, but we may want to, well, I would suggest that we consider, and this is maybe not this group that does it, more the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, but putting some additional money into stabilization, because we may need that to get us through the budget next year. If we're putting 300, 400, whatever into from free cash into the school department budget this year, they're gonna need that same amount next year. And we may not have another funding source. So where we have quite a bit of free cash this year, we may wanna consider that.
So how would we frame this? We have a motion here with the 8 items on it, 761, that's pretty clear. Would we say in reporting, you'd probably put this in your report, the CIPC is recommending that we start a capital, or we already have it, what was it? Add to the existing capital stabilization fund, but in larger amounts going forward. And do we have a number for that we'd recommend?
So with two things, right? We have the capitalization stabilization fund and what is
And the
it, general.
Regular.
General
General
stabilization.
I think for the budget, we're gonna need some money in the stabilization fund for the following year.
That's right, as you just said.
Yeah.
That's the regular
Yeah,
stabilization.
and the capital, we could recommend that those two turnovers be put into the capital, or we may need them to offset some of these costs.
Well, so are you not enthused about adding more to the capital stabilization idea? Like another 100 or so?
No, I'm fine with it. We may need it to pay off some of
Yeah.
these 6 or 7 items, though, depending on how the free cash is spent.
Well, but these 6 or 7 items, we have them covered. We've got the it's not over until it's over. We've got the 761, or we think we've got it.
So, say we have $2 million in free cash, you're probably looking at maybe $400,000 in warrant articles. You're looking at, say, round number, say 500 for the school, which hopefully is the high side, that's 900,000. You got the police contract, which could be a couple $100,000. You know, and then we look for next year's budget. I don't anticipate free cash coming in this high.
No, that's, that would be
Next year,
unusual.
You know, we're starting off good because we have 2 holidays with the health insurance, so that puts about $450,000 into free cash for next year. So that gives us a good starting, and then maybe, you know, our typical $300,000 from revenues, so you're about $700,000. But beyond that, we get department turnbacks. But you know, last year, this year was a tough year for budgets. You're not going to see those same department
Yeah,
turnbacks as we
No.
did
what was it, $1.2 million?
the last couple of years. So.
What I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unusual. Yeah, so you're suggesting that we got to put some additional money in the regular stabilization because of these other factors.
At least consider it, I think.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, I still don't want to give up the idea of stabilization of the capital, because, you know, it's like OPEB, you know, you start slow, but at least you get it started, and then depending on how things go, if you can,
Are we turning the fire article into capital stabilization? Or we're just gonna hold it till next year and
I'm gonna recommend
possibly
hold it.
fund it with the, like, put them together?
Yeah, so we have funds remaining in the article that was approved at last year's town meeting for the air packs for the fire
Yep.
department that they were able to get a grant for. So I don't know what it is,
Like
250,
275,
275,
I think we have left.
which I think would be great to put towards their fire engine in the upcoming years. So that would be something we could put to the capital. And the question is, do you put it in capital this year, or do you just keep it in the fund for one more year and then
Keep
roll
it
it
in
into the new
article.
project?
Yeah, especially
Either-
if it's something that's
It
gonna be
can-
spent next year,
Yeah.
it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, it can sit in the article, but then we still have to vote it at the meeting to repurpose
Right.
the article for something else. Yep.
well, we have the budget discussion on Tuesday night,
We do.
and we have to submit the budget to the finance committee. So we'd be having this discussion then, and talking about this.
Yeah, I think this recommendation can be presented to the Board of Selectmen. If we have to fine tune it, we can have another meeting and fine tune
Right.
it. But it should be hopefully pretty close.
But on your budget itself, the form itself, stabilization, you have 2 categories now? And put a number in there?
We've had 2 categories for years.
And we've just,
A lot of times, we just kind of say stabilization, and it just,
we have to specify.
So my budget Tuesday night won't include the allocation of free cash. It'll just be based on the revenue that's come in and what
Okay.
we need to spend.
So this is a separate, this is
separate, yeah.
except,
Yeah, this
The
is-
Board of Selectmen may
this is
amend the
warrant
budget and
article.
add some free cash to the
yeah,
school department, but that's,
but, yeah, the money we're talking about here for the capital stabilization is free cash.
yes. Free cash or the old warrant articles. We have 3 old warrant articles that we could potentially move.
All right, as long as it, you know, we want to bring visibility to this because it's an idea that's long overdue. And to get it started in some fashion would be good, so we want to get people to think about that. Now, in the end, we may not have it, but, I mean, at least 50,000 to get it going, you know, I mean, 25. Like I said, it looks like OPEB, you just got to start somewhere. Once you get it started, you start thinking about it every year and say, well, maybe we can do something.
those warrant
So at a
articles.
minimum, we could do that, right? Those 2 warrant articles, we could at least at this point recommend that they get rolled over into the,
We
Those-
just put it in the article, put it in, so we're gonna rescind the piece that's left, and then to fund capital
Those were,
stabilization.
and those were originally voted for capital purposes.
Correct.
Yeah,
so we could do that in a separate article though, right? I'd like to keep it.
keep those in one
They were
separate article, yeah.
Actually, 2
Or
separate,
2.
you have to have 2 separate articles. So you have to have one to vote the 9,000, and then you have one to vote the 93,000, and we can write in the article, you know, rescind the remaining amount, and then put it in capital.
See, I like that because
Yeah.
it's justified. You're taking from one capital expense and
Expense.
putting it
Correct.
Yeah.
into something
Correct.
else.
Okay.
That
Doesn't
should
get
go,
mixed in with
stay
everything
capital.
else.
Okay,
So
I just have to figure out how to write up the article.
fast.
I've never written a warrant article before, so that's the one thing I've been researching.
So I will say in the past that they combine those, right? Because there was one article a couple of years ago where they repurposed money from warrant articles and used them for the capital expenses. So you might be able to do it in one. Oh, look.
Well, I can write it up both ways and then let town council fight over it.
Even better.
Or in bond council.
On council.
So should we include that in our recommendation to them?
Well, we can talk about it certainly on Monday,
Okay.
because I want to report that what we've done today and how that fits, even though it's not part of your budget on Tuesday night.
Okay.
But we want the Finance Committee to know that we have something coming down the line here that was voted on and approved by the CIPC. And to keep the conversation going on stabilization fund for capital. But I see what you see. See, on Tuesday, it's just the budget. It's not this.
Right, because this is like the CIPC's warrant. You have to make sure that the warrant article does not say fiscal '24. Because if it says fiscal '24, then you can't spend it until July 1st. And free cash is available now. So as long as it doesn't, it just says, capital program or something, and just list it out, then they can spend it the day after town meeting.
Got that?
I do. Nicole's going to review them all anyway, so.
To
Good,
be honest
good.
with you, any of the articles, because that's the way it was explained to me, is that any of the articles that we have is, if it doesn't specifically say the year, then it can be done day after town meeting.
Yeah.
As soon as it's appropriated.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, well, we'd have the money by that time, so
Right.
there's no reason not to. Okay, so noted, so noted. All right, well, we don't have topics that weren't anticipated 48 hours in advance. We don't have any minutes to approve. I guess I'd ask, is there anything else you want to discuss regarding capital improvements? Then I don't see the purpose in scheduling another meeting. If we have to, we'll get it on, let you know. But I want to thank everybody for their efforts. And, this is a tough process. This year is better in the sense that we've got some other sources of funding which were not available to us in the past. So I'm very happy about that. And it's been a good process, and we're trying to do what we can here to make the most we can with the limited funds we have. So I thank each of you individually, and hope you'll come back next year. You think about it for a while. And maybe somebody want to be secretary by that time, right? Otherwise, Jim might end up with it.
Maybe I can do it again by then.
Well, there you go.
Maybe.
Muriel's not, you've done your time in that vineyard, though. I
Yeah, the
can't.
writing is slow, though.
Well, but it's all in your head anyway.
Yeah,
Let's see.
it doesn't come out.
You're a master of taking minutes, as proven.
And then just
Oh, I hate listening to recordings.
Well,
I
okay.
could listen to the tape.
Well, we'll keep thinking about that. Anyway, a motion to adjourn would be appreciated.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I don't think there'll be any opposed. I see none. Therefore, we are adjourned. I thank you again. Appreciate it, and a belated happy Valentine's Day to all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't bring any chocolates.